All right, teachers, now that you have your classes set up in GoGuardian, I want to show you how it works. And what I'm going to do, so I have my class. Remember, when you're on Classroom, click on the class you want to go to, and we're going to start a session. You can now, when GoGuardian first came out, you could only start one session at a time. Now you can have multiple sessions, which is really cool. So to start a session, you come first, tell it its time. It defaults to 45 minutes, which generally for class, that's fine. But for your exams, you can change the time or even a custom end time. It can't be longer than 7 or 8 hours, I forget. Somewhere in that time frame. So I'm just going to leave it for 45 minutes for now. At this time, we're not going to go deep into scenes because scenes get kind of tricky. Leave it blank. I've also noticed with our launch pad, unless you have been very, very, very precise with your scenes, if you tell it to apply the scene at the start of the session, students can't get into the launch pad to get to the materials they need to get to in order for you to start your work. So I would leave that off. We're going to tell it to start the session. So this was the example one I made because I didn't want to throw any of our students in class up on here. These are actually my two children. Like I said, we're quarantined, so they're working on stuff for home. I promise my son's not piddling around. He has a computer class, so that's him working for computer class. So I'm going to pick on them a little bit as I use them for my work. So right now, you can see flat out what they're doing. If you wanted to make it big, like, this looks curious, let me see what this is. Actually, I'm a little curious to see what my son is doing. All right. I'm hoping he's designing me a new kitchen. I think that may be what that is. So what I did is I just clicked on their screens. This also lets you see any other tabs that they have open. So for instance, he's working on Tinkercad. This is his Launchpad. This is his Google Live Meet. This is his U-Certify that he's been doing for his CTE course, etc. You can close any of these tabs at any time. So say this new tab he has open, I can just click the close button and it closes it. Same with my daughter. I'm not going to close the tab she's on because she is doing Study Island. But see here, she has a new tab. I can close that. I could close her course module. I'm not going to close the work she's working on because that would just be mean to my poor child. The other thing that we can do is you can open a new tab for them. Let me not do that to her. Let me do that to my son. Open new tab and say, for instance, I'm going to take him to google.com. And it'll open a new tab and it takes him straight there to it. And they know that I'm messing with them, so they're working, but they're helping mommy work too. So the other thing you can do is you can take a screenshot. So I just took a screenshot of his work. That is especially if you see a student who is doing something they shouldn't, take a screenshot of it. That way it's for your records. I'll show you in a minute how to get to that. You can also lock their device. When you lock it, you can type a quick message and then lock their screen. It does take a second, and so now it's locked, and on his end, he will see the message that I type that said get to work. I'm going to unlock him now. I appreciate my son being so there it goes. And you saw just a blurb. It's a little raccoon that comes up. It says get back to work. Right now I have the chat feature. I want you to look right here. The chat feature is off. I'm going to turn it on. And you've got one of two options. You can come down here in the bottom corner. Actually, my son just saw that the chat opened up. And as you can see, I have a little red dot. He's telling me hello. Tell him thank you. The other option you have is you can click on their name or on their picture and go to chat here. The other cool thing is, the problem is you see this little green speech bubble, they have to see that pop up. Sometimes they don't. So I can come right here, send announcement. And what that does is it pops up immediately on her screen. She just says, got it. So that could be another thing. Instead of locking their device, you can say, hey, pay attention, or hey, so this is really good if you have a student, hey, so-and-so, come see me, instead of saying out in front of the entire class. It's a great tool for that. And you can see my son is having way too much fun chatting with mommy. One of the things you can also do, let's talk about those scenes real quick. Right now, no scene is applied. The district created some of the scenes already for us. For instance, Ingenuity, you can click at that, and the only thing they can go to is Ingenuity. You can put on the scene where they can go to Canvas only. I'm not doing this to my children right now because they're working, and I don't want to put the scene and then kick them out, because once you apply those scenes, it kicks them out of everything else that they're fooling with. So keep that in mind. You can create a specific scene. The problem with creating a scene is you've got to put in all of the URLs for Launchpad, all the URLs there's a lot there, and it becomes kind of a mess. So if there is a custom scene, unless you're just really tech savvy, that you're really curious about and doing, email the TOSAs. Let them help you create a scene, because they're really good at that, and they can do them super, super quick. But one of the things, I know there was a teacher requesting, well, how can I keep them locked down to one tab? You can put the one tab scene on to where they can only have one scene up, or one tab up at a time. They can't open multiple tabs, which is really good. If you tell everybody go to such and such, once they get there, put on that scene, and they can only have that one tab open, which lets you see, oh, they're dancing back and forth. Or in the example of the midterm, they can't try to open a Google tab to be checking their answers. So that one tab, easy. It's open to anything. It doesn't lock it down, but it does keep them from opening multiple tabs. So that's a really good one. I'm going to leave them off for now. Going back to those screenshots, if you see right here, I've got one screenshot where it took a picture. And when the session ends, I'm going to end the session in just a second, you'll be still able to get to those. Your timelines show you everything that they have been on during that scene. Present to class is a new thing if you're been a user for a while, but this is where you can enable a camera and present your screen, etc. I wouldn't do that for testing purposes. All right. So we're going to, you can see my children, please don't mess me up. They're being funny. I think quarantine's starting to get to us a little bit. If you had more than one session open at a time, you would see them all up here. And the cool thing is, if you were to accidentally close it out, which I have done more times than I'd like to admit, all you have to do is open it back up, and away you go, and it's still running. So I'm going to come at this time, and I'm going to end the session. And you can see in my session, I still have the screenshots. I still have the timeline. And you can come back to these later. Let's see if I can go back to any of the ones that I've done recently. No. But you can go back. So I'm going to go back into that classroom, and you can see there's the session I ran today, and it'll keep a running log of sessions. So don't think that you've lost those screenshots. Those screenshots are there. But if I were to start another session, I will say this. If you're going to create a scene, this is what my experience has been in the past. If you're going to create a scene, go ahead. I used to tell my students, you've got 2 minutes. 2 minutes to get to whatever I want them to get to. And if they were not done, I would know instantly, because as soon as I apply that scene, they can't get in. And then me and that student would have a talk. But most students, especially boys, like to play beat the clock. So be very careful with your scenes, but definitely use that one tab scene. It definitely helps. But keep in mind, on any of like the Canvas scenes or anything that are already created, which locks them down, you need to let them get there first before you start that scene. I hope this helps some of you with testing or for any other computer use that you've been using. Keep in mind that student Chromebooks are already tied to this. This is no issue. If they're using a home device from home, they have to be logged into the Google Chrome browser with their school email address. It won't work if we're not using their school email address, because you have to pay for rights and settings and all that. So if they're logged in with somebody else's email address, it won't work. Does not work on cell phones and tablets. I've already experimented to see if I could get it to work, and I did verify with the TOSAs that no, at this time it does not work. Also, our school desktops do not run GoGuardian. That is our net control. If you happen to be using a desktop, it will not do. This only works for personal computers and our Chromebooks. Let me know if you have any questions and if I can help you out.